Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Character Reveal. It's been about approximately 10 years since our last one, but as always, it's your host, your boy Dom, aka Brother Dom, and as always, I am joined by the tremendous co-host. Would you like to tell the people who you are?
Hey all, it's me, Stephanie, aka Captain Steph, on Twitter and Snowqueer on Tumblr. I don't have that branding like Dom does. We are joined, as always, on Character Reveal by an awesome guest. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Patrick Lindsey. If we're doing the Twitter handle thing, mine is at HanFreakinSolo.
Nice.
I am a freelance / sort of like dilettante game critic / writer / pseudo academic / podcast co-host / question mark.
Okay, so you're a millennial almost, it sounds like.
Yes, yeah, there we go.
I was gonna say, I know there's a word for that.
That's excellent. So how you doing today, Patrick? We always like to just see how people are doing, like to be friendly.
Doing well. I've got a beer. The dog is wandering around somewhere. I am all set to have a rockin' Friday night. Friday, right?
I think it's Friday.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
I'm not
tricked
going to work
myself
tomorrow,
that way.
so it better
Okay,
be.
cool.
So a few important questions off the gate. One, what beer are you drinking? And two, what kind of dog?
So my dog Marston is he's a Staffordshire Terrier, which is the like fancy way of saying pit bull. I'm drinking. I've got 2 beers going right now, just because I figured I'd probably finish one before we finished up here. Right now I'm drinking an Innis and Gunn barrel-aged Scotch ale, which I gotta say I'm super not feeling, actually, which is a little sad, because whenever I find a new beer I haven't seen before, I get really excited. But when this is over, I just have a standard Anchor Porter ready to go. I prefer darker beers myself.
So you didn't even say it at the beginning that you're also like a genius too, because dark beers are the best. So. At least in my opinion.
I mean, I won't disagree with you.
Slot that into all of those other descriptors next time.
Sure.
Distinguished genius beer drinker.
Genius, yeah.
I'm actually drinking a Southern Tier Warlock myself. It's one of my favorites, and
ooh, that is a really good one.
It's. I think it's my favorite beer of all time, and like.
Because it's like their pumpkin, but better. Exactly.
That's. I don't even need to explain it.
You found a kindred spirit.
It's people talk shit a lot on the pumpkin spice latte, for probably sexist reasons. But I'm gonna say milk and squash, not a good idea. But pumpkin spice beers, though, that's the chef kiss right there.
Yeah.
Actually,
that is why they invented pumpkins and spices, so that we could put them into beer.
You know, can I have a controversial hot take right here? I think pumpkin spice lattes are the worst pumpkin spice thing in all of that we have.
Pumpkin spiced them.
Yeah, like it's better in so many other things that aren't just hot milk.
That's the problem, I think, is the milk just sort of overtakes everything. And if you're like me, you're not a big milk drinker / you don't like creamy mouthfeel. Yeah, you tend to steer clear.
Man, if we were doing our recap show, we would creamy mouthfeel would definitely be the title of the episode.
Well, you're welcome.
Creamy mouthfeel with Patrick Lindsey.
I feel like that's. I think that might be misleading.
I think I've just ruined everything you guys are trying to do here today.
No, you've amplified our brand. This is exactly what we do. So you do the podcast you do is Bullet Points, correct?
That's right, yeah. I do it with Reed McCarter and Ed Smith, who are 2 very talented, very smart freelance game critics in their own right.
Excellent. So the description, real quick, says a critical video game podcast about shooting games. So, I don't know, what's the least cliche question I could ask here? Why shooting games versus another game type?
So Bullet Points as a project actually grew out of another project that Reed and I worked on a couple years ago. We put together an ebook called Shooter. That was an anthology of critical essays about shooting games, and it started off, he approached me and just said, hey, I really want to do this book project, and I know that you talk about shooters a lot, which means that he's read my Doom articles, I guess. And I'd like you to help me out. And then we decided to open it up, and we, instead of writing all of the chapters ourselves, we solicited pitches from writers on the internet, which was probably one of the better collective ideas that we have had probably ever. We had the book is 15 chapters with a foreword from Clint Hawking, and the essays in the book cover everything from like actual mechanical design to like social and political contexts to things like personal exploration using shooters as a medium. So because we opened it up to more and more people, we just got such a broader range of ideas and of essays, and it was fantastic to work on. So it was kind of a natural sort of segue once that had wrapped up, and we sort of had this like gaping hole in our professional lives that we were both trying to fill. It's like, well, why don't we just do this as like a regular thing? Okay. So we started the podcast. We brought Ed Smith on because he had expressed an interest in it, and we have very good working relationships with him. He also contributed to Shooter. And then Reed decided rather, to start Bullet Points Monthly, which is the written component, which we've been doing for just over a year now.
Gotcha. Okay, so you do a lot of stuff with that. So I remember when you were calling for pitches for Shooter, and I saw that and said, man, one day I will be comfortable enough with my writing and or have played enough shooting games to contribute, because it's never really been a genre that got on with me. And, you know, I kind of wonder why that is. I played a lot of Call of Duty, World at War, and Modern Warfare 2. Those are my college days, so...
Sure, yeah,
if you're going to be in a dorm,
college days.
Yeah, if you're going to be in a dorm with some guys, what better to do? And, you know, I never really got on with the multiplayer because people were so much better than me in such a high volume. Like, there'd be, like, 10 other guys. I'm assuming they're guys because it's Call of Duty 2 and Modern Warfare. I wouldn't have been on there. I've heard the harassment. I wouldn't have been on there. So I never played online because it was just not fun. But just 4 guys in a room playing on split screen on like a 19-inch Vizio screen.
Oh yes, yeah.
Something about that was dream. like endlessly fun. And so I never really got too much with shooters. I watched my friends like surf around in the old Counter-Strike, but I'd say the first shooting game that I cared to get into on my own was Splatoon, which isn't really a shooting game in the traditional sense.
Why not? It's got guns in it.
I'd say it is, like, not in the traditional sense, but and then Overwatch. But from what I understand, and this I'm just saying this in this way to try to spur some conversation, I feel like the shooters that I like are more casual, basic shooters. Do you have any opinion on casual? Do you have any opinions on if there's even such a thing as a casual shooter versus a hardcore shooter? If that's even a distinction worth mentioning?
Those words are words that are English words, and they have like English semantic meaning, but in the context of video games, I think they're worse than useless. I say worse than useless because they actually, not only do they not correctly taxonify video games, they actually create a lot of weird, stupid, like artificial divides, which is exactly the opposite of what we're supposed to be doing with games. And like there are so many games that I play now that I wouldn't have touched even like 10 years ago because like, oh, those are stupid casual games. And now I'm just mad at myself. So man, these games are awesome. Like Marvel Puzzle Quest, it's a freaking amazing game. I would never have played this, back in 2012, because it's like, you dirty casuals. That's actually part of the reason why we wanted to focus on shooters specifically, first with Shooter and then with Bullet Points, because the genre gets a bad rap kind of from both sides. It's got this weird reputation for being like the beer can crushing, like natty ice drinking, popped collar, like frat boy staple.
Natty
and then
ice,
the other side of that is like the like Klebold Harris archetype, like the weird like loner in the black trench coat playing shooters and then like shooting up a school or something. And I think both of those interpretations are incredibly narrow-minded, and really the crime for me is that glosses over a lot of what shooters have to offer, both mechanically and sort of socially and politically. So we really wanted to kind of pop the hood in a genre that I think is one of the more misunderstood in the game world, both among people who play and people who only know games through like the news. We wanted to pop the hood and dig into the guts and just kind of see what was actually there.
That makes a lot of sense, because I was thinking, just from my few interactions with you on Twitter over the last, I guess, few years, that's wild to think about.
Yeah.
But you've seemed like more of the, like you said, academic side. So I was thinking, like, why would he want to write an anthology or get an anthology together about what's considered like the poster child for like, oh man, video games are bad and they cause violence. So I was curious as to like how you ended up in that genre. That's kind of interesting to look at it as one of the more misunderstood genres. I definitely agree with that.
I've got a completely like sidebar question to that.
Do it up.
As someone who has not written much about video games, but who has been published in 2 anthologies, like fandom-y anthologies, how was that for you? Was that fun? Organizing that?
It was a blast. It was like one of the hardest things I've ever done, just because I'm not an organized person at all. And when you are trying to wrangle not just like your own work and the work of your partner, but literally like 14 or 15 other people, and trying to keep some semblance of a deadline, it's super stressful. But it's like for me, I found it to be the good kind of stress, where you're just it stresses you out in such a way that your brain is just kind of always firing at maximum, which is a great feeling when you can kind of ride that. And like when the end result of that is a product, oh, that's a terrible word. When the end result is a thing that you are very proud of, both conceptually, like what it is you think is a good thing, but also just that you were able to put it together and get it out into the world and share it with people, that's also inherently rewarding. So yeah, it was so much fun. We've kicked around the idea of doing something similar again, but I think we're both still a little bit hungover from the first time around.
Would you do another one about shooting games, or would you focus on a different genre? Or
it's a good question. I mean, there are, obviously, because shooters are among the more prolific, there we go, among the more prolific of genres, there's a lot of games that exist, which means that by necessity there are a lot we didn't cover. So there are a couple that we've thought, man, it would be great to, go back and write about Halo, for example, because we actually didn't talk about Halo in the first one.
Oh wow, it's like such a big intro.
Exactly, right? But then also there are a lot of other genres that I think could really benefit from the same treatment. So I think part of the reason, at least for me, why I haven't actively pursued a follow-up is because I just haven't been able to commit to one thing or the other.
I guess that is sort of the difficulties. Like, is it shooter 2 or like something else? Because there is so much. You could probably spend the rest of your life just in that space, and you could spend the rest of your life just not even having any depth, but just trying to get the breadth of games there were. And that's not even counting the rest of culture. But
exactly, yeah.
That is mind blowing, actually, to think about. So. I want to jump back to this. I want to get as many questions in as we can, because this is awesome. So you say that the terms casual and hardcore are pointless and harmful, which I agree with that. Sometimes I grasp for words, and those tend to, when you're speaking with a certain set of people, you can use those words as shorthand without the negative things, but you can't with everybody. What do you think those are like? I believe there's sort of an elitist gatekeeping element to using those words sometimes, but do you think that there is...
video games?
Well, I mean...
gatekeeping in my video games?
We'll come back to that in a second. Gosh. But do you think that there's something that's sort of... I guess, for lack of a better word, there's a nugget of truth in there. Like, I feel like a lot of the things that people say that are sort of nonsense... controversies in the games industry have like a reason to be asked, but they're asking them in the most like surface level harmful ways. Like, for instance, we have the review score debate every 6 months in games, which is useless. Which
it is.
But
you're hitting all my buttons tonight, Dom.
Oh, this was careful.
Should I leave
Twitter
you two alone?
But I think the good faith arguments behind, which are few and far between, are like, I don't think that they need this, but like, is there a purpose in using these? Is there worth it to have the shorthand? I've seen people have the good faith conversation, even if it is sort of not necessary to have. So do you think the distinction between hardcore and casual has something to be talked about, even if it's not the most productive conversation?
I think asking why we insist on the distinction, as you just brought up, is a really good way to approach it. I mean, not even is this good or bad, but more like even more basic than that. Why do we insist on delineating? And I think a sort of sub question that comes out of that is we haven't even defined our own terms properly. If I were to ask you what is a hardcore video game and what is a casual video game, either via example or by some sort of criteria, like what would you tell me?
So for hardcore, I'd have to go with Dota 2. And for casual, I'd have to say something like... I feel like it's cheating to ask me because I've put a lot of effort into this question already.
Sure, no, that's good.
But for me, something casual would be like sort of your... like maybe Super Mario World kind of game. Because I used to be one of these people, so I would have said Farmville 10 years ago, but like 9 years ago I saw a lady like on her iPad in a cafeteria, like probably a 50-year-old lady, like on her lunch break, one hand in food, one hand on her iPad, and I'm like, this lady's playing video games in the little bit of time she has to make sure her crops don't die for this game that it's essentially supposed to be a money pit, but she's putting far more effort into this game than like
My siblings would get up at like 3 o'clock in the morning to make sure that their crops did not die.
That is like the definition of hardcore. Yeah. But like, because I think that ultimately when you boil it down, and people won't outright admit this, but I think when you boil it down, what it comes down to is subject matter. A game is hardcore if it's about killing things, and it's casual if it's not. And any other like design elements or time investment or learning curves, any other aspect like that doesn't really factor into it.
So I feel like playing Modern Warfare Live with your homies in college is pretty casual.
That's the most casual. That is the most casual experience in video games I've ever had. Like, because like it literally didn't matter. Like I would get heated, but it's just because like my bros are gonna call me weak. Like not in a toxic masculinity way, but they're like, dog, you went,
I mean, there's
you went
some of that as well. But...
Yeah, they're like, you went 0-16. I'm like, yeah, that's pretty bad. But I was also the guy who would like use the rocket launcher at my feet, knowing that I'll die. But I was like, it's gonna piss off my buddy. Don't care if I win.
The other question that kind of logically stems from this sort of thing is why we've decided collectively that the term casual is a pejorative in the first place. Because games get called casual sort of as like a way to write them off.
Yes.
And in contrast, a game that is, quote, hardcore means that you've, bought into the, quote, gamer lifestyle. I don't know. No, exactly. So there's so many contradictions and sort of unresolved points within the conversation that it's almost impossible to have in a semantically meaningful way. Everyone just sort of, as you said earlier, which I think is a really great way of describing it, uses it as shorthand within given like social circles, which is fine. It fulfills the function of you being able to talk with your friends about certain types of video games quicker and more easily. But in terms of using it as a means of assessing video game culture in the real world, I think it does far more harm than good.
Yeah. See, I've been using it in reference to the way someone plays a game. That was a perfect example. You could casually play League of Legends and you could hardcore play Farmville. It really doesn't matter to me. There's people that play competitive Catherine, which was a dating sim that had a mini game where you climb stuff. So like, I've seen this at multiple tournaments. It's not even like a random thing. So like there are hardcore Catherine players versus like casual, I don't know, flight sim enthusiasts probably. I don't know. So to me, it's useful for talking about the way someone interacts with something. But again, it's not useful when I try to like make that conversation to a broader aspect. So I'm like, I casually play Marvel vs. Capcom 3. And people are like, so you don't really care? I'm like, no, I know all the moves. I just am not losing any food or sleep to get an
Yeah.
infinite combo.
I'm not worried about my family getting killed if I lose this match.
Yeah, okay. I was just curious what some of your more in-depth thoughts are, because I think we have sort of a mixed audience, and we have some. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think it's interesting, like, too, like, going back to the idea of, like, things being hardcore if they have violent content and casual if they don't. I think there's definitely, like, a coded gender coding there.
Oh my god, yes.
Like,
yeah.
like, and it's almost funny to me because it's almost like a secret. Like, in other things, it's very open that people are derisive about the things that are geared towards women. Like, chicklet is derogatory, or, like, it's just a romance novel. Like, like, that's, like, it's right on the nose. It's like, yes, these are things that are geared towards women that we are... these are the pink Bic pens. Like...
Oh, I forgot about those.
So I think...
No, hashtag never forget.
So I think that gamers are just bad at that, actually. Subtlety is not big in the gamer industry.
I also think that part of it is up until maybe 10 years ago, the idea of women playing video games at all, like, not only was it not common or, like, preferred, I don't even think people realized it happened.
So like, we don't need to make fun of these women because I know they don't exist.
So that's why there isn't, like, a, you know, chick game genre. I mean, people would argue that that's basically what dating sims do, but I don't care one way or the other. But
I've never heard someone speak about dating. I mean, I'm sure it's happened. I'm not sitting here trying to act like that, but I've never heard someone say, like, I guess no one's made the comparison because they're just such a different genre.
Yeah, they're super niche.
But I mean, I don't know. Dream Daddy and How to Full Boyfriend set off the internet, and I don't remember seeing, like, the derision for those games the way I saw for quote unquote walking simulators. Which, side note, I'm sad that we don't have a literal walking simulator with, like, Tony Hawk type scoring.
That would be lovely.
Just saying, I've been thinking of that for 14 years, and I'm pissed that no one has, like, made that. I digress.
Be the change you want to see in
I
the
was
world,
just
though.
gonna say that exact thing.
That requires, like, more than me sitting here drinking a beer laughing with you two about it. So
one thing at a time.
It's one thing at a time. But yeah, I do find it interesting that we haven't heard... Do you have any insight to why that is? Is that no one... Like, I don't see people getting mad about Dream Daddy the way that I saw people getting mad about, like, Gone Home or Everyone's Gone to the Rapture. And I don't know why that is.
I don't super understand it myself because, yeah, it's kind of nonsensical. If I had to guess, which I do, I would probably say that something like a How to Build Boyfriend or a Dream Daddy is bizarre enough that it's kind of just like a weird... it's like watching The Room, right? No one thinks when you sit them down... When you sit them down to make someone watch The Room, no one's like, all right, this person is trying to pass this off as, like, legitimate cinema. It's just like a weird thing that you watch and enjoy how strange it is. And, like, parts of it are funny intentionally or otherwise. Parts of it are just bizarre. But because its strangeness is so far removed from, like, what actually makes the medium, like, composes the bulk of the medium, I think people are willing to give it a pass. But if you take a game like Gone Home or Everyone's Gone to the Rapture, something that at least could be perceived as fundamentally trying to change what the definition of a video game is in 2017, that freaks people out.
Okay, I like that. It's podcasting is weird because there's not, like, a lot of room for asking a question and getting an answer and be like, good answer.
That is literally what podcasting is.
I feel like you're supposed to, like, build off of it, though. Like, I mean, like I'm doing now.
It's like, oh, cool. Thanks. Good answer.
I was just taken aback by such a good answer. Let's put it that way.
Flattery will get you absolutely everywhere.
That's the goal. Do you think how do you feel about the need for fail states in games?
Again, I think it's one of those things that we have sort of taught ourselves as a component of games. Akin to the walking simulators review scores debate, you often see the "but is it a game" debate. That was especially prevalent back when Gone Home was released because that was like a big catalyst for that conversation. And again, it's a thing where people get way too hung up over classifications that they can't just let themselves enjoy something. Most games I've played have a fail state. You either die or you run out of money or whatever. But even if you play a game that's fairly broad in scope and quote mainstream, like SimCity, like there are things built into those games that to let you turn the fail states off and just like enjoy playing it. So I think that's great. I think if you're playing a game to be challenged, and if you're playing a game because you want to, give your brain a workout, you want to solve spatial puzzles, so you play Tetris or Catherine or any of the other various spatial games, that's great. If you just want to be in a place that's really cool, if you want to run around and like whack things with a sword for a while, if you want to build a city and like watch cars drive up and down the street that you made, then you play a game like City Skylines with the infinite money mode turned on, and more power to you, man.
Cool.
I think we love policing how people play games, and it's infuriating.
I agree completely. I feel the same way about this, so this is sort of like a circle jerk of a conversation, but like I just like knowing that someone who does some analysis and specifics on this has similar opinions. And for those who don't know these opinions, it's still a good conversation to hear. Like I said, we have a mixed audience. I think about sport a lot in relation to games, in that there's been times in my life where I'm playing like soccer or something, and there's a fail state in soccer. Your number is lower than the other team's number. But that our win state is not to have a higher number, because we know that we're a terrible team. So we're like, if we can lose by less than this amount, I consider it a victory. Or if I make the other team tired, I consider this a victory. And people are like, that's not the fail state. I'm like, haha, not the way I'm playing. I've
on my level, man.
So someone pointed that like little kids play games that aren't games by any real definition. They're like, oh, it's the hopping game. And you're like, oh, what's that, 4-year-old? They're like, you jump, and you're like, in your head you're like, that's not a game, that's just an activity. And you're like, but this kid's happy, so I'm not going to tell him to stop. You're like, oh, we could do that with video games.
There's a philosopher / stuffed suit white guy who writes about things. Named Bernard Suits, and he. That's perfect. Yeah, I know, right? And he wrote once that playing a game is nothing more than a voluntary effort to overcome unnecessary obstacles. And that is a definition that has really stuck with me, because it is broad enough that it can, encompass things like Call of Duty or soccer, but it can also encompass, the hopping game. The obstacle that you're setting for yourself there is, you can only move by hopping around. And it's a game because you're choosing to do it. But it's also narrow enough that you can't say like, well, I mean, you could say, chopping onions is a game. How long can you go without crying? Spoiler is not very long if you're but so I think like rather than defining specific elements that a game is supposed to have, I think if you can just look at it in terms of here is the general like conceptual goal of this type of cultural event that we are going to call playing a game. And it's largely interpretive because human beings are pluralistic and experiences come from different places. And that's cool. I mean, playing a game that someone else made is a process of peeking into sort of the factors that have led them to that point. And, that's playing a game with someone else is them sharing their experiences with you in that way as well. So I think that the quest to find the one true perfect platonic form of a game is misguided. I think we should just focus on not what does a game need to do to be a game, but all right, we know what games are, spoilers, everything that we want it to be. Now what are we capable of doing now that we have that definition?
I like that. I mean, we already have the perfect game, but it's you're right, it is
Doom, I know.
I was going to say Sonic 3 and Knuckles, but Doom's a good contender. Okay, that's some pretty good stuff. So I don't know how to phrase this question because of some of the good enlightening conversation we've had thus far. What was it like to go from you co-wrote Depression Quest, correct?
I did.
what was it like? I guess what's the difference in feeling between writing that and writing shooter? Because while I consider shooting games and Depression Quest both games, I quite enjoyed. Enjoyed's not the right word, but I quite liked playing Depression Quest. Didn't make me feel great, but
don't worry,
it helped me out. But one of those is definitely like, hey, get some satisfaction from like endorphins of blowing something up, and this other one's like, here's an experience of a specific life set, and I feel like those are very different in the ways that you would play them. What's kind of like the world between that? Like, could you just talk about that difference a little bit?
Well, from a like creation standpoint, shooter was a thing I did because I enjoy playing shooters and thinking about shooters and kind of sharing those analyses with whomever has indicated that they want to listen. /
Whoever you can stop.
Yeah, exactly. Whoever I can pay to let me talk. I know that feeling. Depression Quest was more of a compulsion, really. It was kind of it was conceived at a time in my life when things were not good, and it was a kind of a wit's end type scenario, and it was sort of like a bolt from the blue style idea where it came to me one day and I thought, you know what, this is how I'm going to deal with whatever's happening in my life right now. It just makes perfect sense for me to try and codify this experience and this sort of thought process into a video game. And it was one of the more like one of the clearer sort of moments I can recall having, sort of, we'll call it professionally, in recent years. It was just a thing that I sort of didn't really have a choice but to do. Okay. And then that motivation kind of carried the project forward, even though there were several times throughout the project where it almost just didn't happen, because as you can imagine, spending hours and hours and hours talking about all the ways you fucked up your life can really be a drain on your emotional state.
Yeah, I can see how that might be a little trying.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, not to butter your bread too much, but I think I got a lot out of that. I think I played that during my college years and just kind of kept it in my back pocket as an experience. But when I was going through some stuff in my own life, I think it helped me to seek some help a little bit.
Great.
I wasn't like at least in my opinion, I wasn't in dire straits, but it was definitely opened me up to saying, you know what, there's no need to be like, that mechanic that you all had where like, I would read like quote unquote the good ending option and it was grayed out because like you can't say this. I was like, oh shit, like this, I don't know, to me, that was one of the greatest mechanics in a video game I've ever played. I don't know if anyone would agree, but fuck them. But that
take that, John Romero.
But when I was going through my own struggles, I was like, you know what? I'm thinking to say this, but let me think about what would I consider the good ending option in my own life, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And it was sort of like, be open to, if someone says, hey, I'm not saying you need help, but if you do, ask me. I'm like, well, maybe I do. And my life has been better since then. So thanks for that.
That's yeah. It's a little awkward because I don't really know how to respond to things like that. Because me saying, "Oh yeah, that's you're welcome," handshake, like that feels disingenuous. But
I understand. I wasn't saying thank you for the you're welcome, but I just wanted to let you know that it was appreciated. To make you not feel so great.
Yes.
No, so butter you up and then we bring you right back down.
So that
just drop me butter side down.
Hey, physics won't let it fall that way, so we always land on our feet. It's a good world.
It's a mixed ass metaphor, Dom.
Yeah, you're right. But what was
That's
it kind
why
of?
I'm the editor and you're the writer.
Exactly. What was it kind of like after that? And if you don't want to talk about it, we can just skip it. I'll just edit this out.
After?
Yeah, because that game kind of was sort of a powder keg for all the bullshit that happened.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, because people need nonsense reasons, but
I'm gonna skirt around that part of it, but one thing I will say is that we were not expecting the game to take hold as strongly as it did. when we were, even like the hours leading up to when we were going to set it live, we were sort of trying to guess amongst ourselves what the reception was going to be like. And we were thinking, you know, if we could get our immediate friends and then maybe, you know, a couple dozen random people from the internet who stumble upon it, we can get them to play it, then the whole thing will have been, quote, a success. Obviously, that is not what happened. But it was actually really amazing to see, because, like, yeah, we did write it for the sake of other people to have a reference point. But, and this sounds weird and kind of, like, selfish and assholey, but to a large extent, at least me, I made it for myself. I made it because it was a way for me to process what was happening in my brain and in my life. So once that is released into the wild and you see that not only are people not ignoring it, but are actually really identifying with various aspects of it, it was kind of a punch in the gut. Not in a bad way, obviously, but it was not a thing I had ever anticipated. And then getting emails from people long after the game was actually released, people I'd never heard of, you know, saying, oh, thank you for this, and then sharing very personal details of their own, like, private struggles was... It's strange in a way that you never really expect a thing to be strange. The fact that they're total strangers who know nothing about you, who are willing to share some of their darkest moments with you, is incredibly touching in a way that is makes you feel real weird about your own sort of
it's
like, kind of like, who the hell am I to warrant this type of response from people, like that sort of thing.
Yeah. So I can't say
that's
I know
the word for it.
I can't say I know what that's like, but I can sympathize. Empathize. Is that the word?
We'll choose one. I use them interchangeably.
This is why I have editors. Well, yeah. Okay. Just kind of curious about that, because it was it sort of seemed like the big phenomenon. It seemed like there's always about 5 indie games at any given time that are like the ones people talk about, and it seemed like it really rose, considering it wasn't like a quote unquote mechanics heavy game. It wasn't. It was free. It was browser based, I think, when I played it. So like this was it was just interesting to see. There's like a weird microcosm of this checks all the boxes of things that people say aren't games, yet people are like going wild about this for good reason. And so I think that was just kind of, to me, I think that's part of, I feel like that was part of like the boom. You know, we talk about like your Super Meat Boys, your VVVVVs, your the classic indies that kind of broke the bubble, as it were. But I feel like that's kind of there too, because it sort of it just busted open the door of like, oh hey, there's people that want stuff like this. No matter how much you want to act like they're not there, there's far too big of a reception for this game for people to just ignore whatever it is that this group is.
I mean, one of the best parts about the whole experience for me was in the months immediately afterward, just seeing the explosion, not just of Twine-based games, but just what we would consider non-standard games in general. People making, you know, not that dating sims didn't exist before then, but, you know, people leaning into making dating sims, people making more interactive fiction and visual novels and choose your own adventure, people making more games about personal experiences. And I obviously can't say that that wouldn't have happened had Depression Quest not been made, because I think that that's not true at all. I think that these types of projects always exist and will always exist, but I think that at least for some people there may have been a thought that, like, all right, well, it's safe to sort of push these things now, because I know that there is a reception sort of waiting for this type of thing, and honestly, you know, seeing more games by different types of people about what their life experience is like is literally never a bad thing.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah, I feel like it would be egotistical if you said it. That's what it sounds like you're saying, but I'm willing to say it because I'm not you and people can get mad at me. I feel like without the explosion of like Depression Quest, we don't see the widespread of Gone Home or like all of Robert Yang's games, or I don't think there's as much impetus to pull out stuff like the Hatterfoot Boyfriends or or even like much of the writing we had. Like there was, I can't remember the name I even wrote about, like Lee Alexander's site, Waypoint, the stuff that like Austin Walker and Evan Narcisse do. They were already doing these things and they were good at them, but I think there was sort of a powder keg in a good way of like, oh hey, there's a huge market and community of people that are like, yeah, I love stabbing stuff on screen, but it's sometimes nice to feel stuff. And it doesn't have to cost $2 million.
Emotions occasionally.
Yeah, so, again, congrats on that. And I was just curious about what the experience was like, kind of being behind the scenes on that, because I was just some fresh-faced college kid looking on. I think that's the first thing I wrote. I wrote a Tumblr post.
Oh, wow.
The review was...
Maybe his first games journalism.
Yep, I was always talking about it, and I'm like, if people are willing to bare their souls, I can write some words about that, whether they're good or not.
All words are good words. Not true.
That's not true.
But,
2017 has taught me there are terrible words, and there's actually some
terrible words.
People are like, there's no such thing as bad questions. I'm like, there's some pretty stupid ass questions.
Yeah, there are absolutely bad questions. I think that's one of those holdovers, like the customer is always right. No, actually.
Oh, actually, no.
The customer's quite often wrong.
Yeah, most of the time, actually.
Distinctly wrong.
So speaking of dumbass questions, I'm not going to ask a dumbass question, but it's sort of like
okay. I was waiting.
No. Well, I'm questions.
Got my hopes up.
So a lot of people express, I'm just tired of coddling these people. So dumbass questions and raise dumbass points on Twitter, and I see that you are not a fan of that.
No.
Do you have sort of any, I guess, balance on? Because you're sort of more well known than I am. So do you have any tips on like kind of knowing when to just stop being like replying to things that make you mad and just saying, you know what, I'm gonna go look at like foxes or wolves or something?
Wolves are pretty good, I'm not gonna lie.
That's
That's true.
They're basically just puppies.
Danger floofs, yeah.
I love it.
I have a problem in that I have a temper. And it comes out a lot online, as you have seen. Most of the time when I get into it with people, it's very ill-advised, because one thing I have learned is that if someone cares enough about a thing to, call you some sort of bad word about it, more than that, to call you some sort of bad, like, personally insulting word over a fucking video game, you're not gonna change their viewpoint in a Twitter exchange.
I can see that.
You're not gonna reason with the Nazis, and then all of a sudden, there's no more Third Reich. That's not gonna happen. That's not to say that there aren't some people who have been exposed to a particular subset of ideas and espouse those ideas only because they haven't really had experience with other perspectives. I've seen people like that where, they maintain sort of what I will obnoxiously call status quo opinions. But they do actually take the time to sit down and listen to you or other people who are, pushing the other point. And, it's not unheard of for people to say, oh, yeah, actually, I hadn't really considered that, but that makes a lot of sense. In fact, I would argue 99% of white guys who aren't assholes, that's how they became not assholes. Is they had someone sit down and say, well, no, actually, here's why what you're saying is messed up. So, yeah, it does happen. But when you're talking about like the Twitter dog pile, you're not going to change anyone's mind. Sometimes I ashamedly, revel in kind of metaphorically bashing heads of stupid people.
Yeah, we all like to get our dunks in. Exactly,
but I would say that no one is under any obligation to put themselves or subject themselves to psychological stress or harassment over a thing that they're probably not going to change anyway.
That's fair.
Just love yourself, man.
Okay. Just curious about that. I had a weekend where I just replied to some tweet and then didn't get any replies for like a while, and then I started getting replies. I'm like, oh, this must be on like some Reddit or 4chan board, because I was literally not getting responses to it. Yeah. It was like some innocuous tweet that someone said, oh, couldn't this be why people went to Trump? And I just tweeted, no, it was racism. Because in my head, I was just doing like it's political. Don't get me wrong, but I was doing like no, this is Becky from like
right.
that's what I thought it was what I was doing.
No, this is Patrick.
Yeah. To me, I wasn't really like dropping a truth bomb or being that incendiary, but people like started responding to me, and I'm like, you know what? Let me respond to these people in a way that like if they actually are talking in good faith, they'll consider it, but if not, it'll just be a dunk on my part because I'm not really putting like a lot of emotion into it. Like,
hell yeah,
I'm not gonna walk out of here like feeling bad, but like I'll poke the bee's nest, but the bees can't see me, so it's like it's fine. Because I will just block people. It's not that serious. And then a few people, you would see them just stop or like ask questions. I'm like, but that's not what you asked me. And like I'll if they had like more than 100 followers, I'll run in a few circles with you. But they had like less than 10. I'm like, you're just like probably someone's alt account, and it's like, and I'm not bothered by this, but I'm annoyed. Like it's annoying to get notifications, and I think I did change like one. Like somebody called, like they saw my picture and they called me like, I forget what it was, like a worn out Lucio, and I'm like, whoa man, like don't insult my cosplay. He's like, hey man, he's like, Overwatch like rises above all like social stuff, and I'm like.
Oh, honey.
But it was weird that he was willing to have that moment with me about my cosplay, despite like trying to dunk on me. And I'm like, oh, come on, man. And like he was able to like see the humanity through that, but not with my point. So I wasn't
like, come for whatever else, but don't come for Overwatch.
See, yeah, the weird like pessimistic spin that I would put on that is people are more willing to be civil toward a fictional video game character than they are toward an actual real human being.
That is a.
What's so weird that people like that game is so specific because people will say racist stuff, but then like they'll be playing as Doomfist, like literally an African guy, and then like say the N-word. I'm like, so you see the value of black people in this fake society,
right?
And of women because you want like Mercy or Zarya or something. But at the same time...
because you need healing.
But you wouldn't say this shit to somebody in real life. And that in real life, fictional life, if you saw Doomfist running around, you wouldn't say this shit. So it's like, you kind of like halfway see the value. I don't know. Something about that is odd to me that you're like, oh, I'm not going to call Lucio the N-word because he's cool. You're like, he's fucking fake. I'm real, and you just calling me the N-word, like, what's different? I'm like, that's worse. That's actually worse.
I mean, there are lots of theories and proposed explanations for stuff like this. The idea that, women and black people and minorities and anyone who's not a straight white man, they can accept their existence as long as they exist within a context that has been defined and approved by white people, i.e., an Overwatch game. Like, that's cool because they exist to help their team or whatever. But yeah, the idea of granting people or whole sections of people even autonomy and emotional agency is a bridge too far for some people. And to be honest, there are many very smart people who have talked about this more eloquently and intelligently and prolifically than I'm capable of doing. But I think, a big part of it is just people aren't willing to shift their worldview to include, quote, othered persons. Yeah. It's just too hard.
It's kind of a shame.
It is.
I get really upset when I see people saying the best way to ignore, like, trolling during games, like when you're trying to play a competitive and rank up, is like, don't dignify this stuff. And I'm like, no, you know what? Like, if they're willing to, like, be sexist towards one of our players, like, okay, maybe there is a girl playing Mercy and girls only play Mercy. Okay, whatever. If that's what you believe, just stop, dude. Just like, why do you have to be a toxic person? So I'm gonna call you out, be like, come on, man, like that's not cool. And a lot of people say, well, that's just gonna get them to throw the game. And I'm like, if you're talking shit, you're probably gonna eventually like get to that point anyway, without people like calling you on your shit. So I might as well call you on your shit and let you know that that's not cool. It's not. Yeah. Like, I don't expect that I'm going to change you. But, like, if everyone who actually cares about this stuff eventually just tells everybody that's not cool, it might not change the person, but they'll stop doing it because they're tired of, like, getting
yelled at
called
by
out,
strangers.
getting reported.
It's like punching Nazis. You create an environment in which people realize it's not really acceptable to be that way.
Yeah, like,
exactly.
like, oh, you're not going to change their mind by punching them. Like, that's not on the table.
I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to...
I just want them to stop coming around.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like, obviously when we beat them in World War II, that didn't get rid of them, so, like, we're trying to get them, like... Yeah, I'd rather racism go away, but I'm not that optimistic of life, so I'd rather the racists just stop doing it in public.
Right.
And let's get them out of the... Like, if they're going to do it in public, let's get them out of office. Then again, I also yearn for the days when, like, racism was considered a bad thing, so, I mean, maybe we'll get there by the end of 2018, but, you know, I don't know.
I admire your optimism.
That's why I said hopefully.
Yeah.
Dom is nothing if not an eternal optimist.
Oh, it's
I sense a bit of sarcasm.
it's
Oh no.
It's like Wolfenstein's gonna come out, right? And the goal is to defeat Nazis. And I don't remember that being a problem in the last one.
This is what makes me laugh, is the same people who are complaining about, you know, the violent left attacking Nazis and how that's not okay, are the same people who are like, fuck yeah, Wolfenstein! You stab that dude in the throat, BJ. And
well, you
like,
know, it's because it's fictional, Patrick. Like, oh yeah, I wouldn't do that in real life. Like, these guys are literally the bad guys. Like, they're destroying planets or whatever it is. I never played Wolfenstein.
I saw a Twitter thread the other day, and unfortunately I can't remember who it was that wrote it, but they had said that a big problem with that sort of thinking is that because we're in the period that we live in right now is literally called the Long Peace by historians, because we haven't had a major war for 70 years. And that does something to your sort of understanding of history. It turns historical events into folklore, basically.
Yeah.
Which means that fascism and toxic nationalism and militarism are no longer things to be vigilant against actively. They are kind of almost like national creation myths that you tell yourself at night to sort of tuck your kids in because, you know, Uncle Sam is going to protect you. But there's really no, in most people's minds, immediate threat. You know, we defeated the Third Reich, Hitler's dead, Stalin's dead, the Cold War's over-ish. We don't really have to worry about this stuff anymore. But, like, it lulls kind of an entire half of the world into a false sense of sort of, like, social security. Not social security, but, you know.
Not America.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I think that and games as useful as games like Wolfenstein are in, you know, reminding us, yeah, we're still supposed to be killing Nazis, they also do still sort of contribute to that folklore, because you're mythologizing a real thing that happened. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, I just think it's worth noting that it happens.
Yeah, I think I was thinking about this the other day, and I don't know if someone pointed this out to me, if I just kind of noticed it, or like a combination of the both. But like Hitler and them guys were so bad that we were always able to just kind of say that's the bad guy, to the point that it was like cathartic for some people. And you know, I'm not going to tell people that were more specifically affected by this how to treat stuff, but I know for like, I don't know, like your Family Guys or any of your parody shows, they always made Hitler like this goofy dude. Like, they were trying to make fun of him. Like, they weren't respecting him, but they kind of made him seem like this ineffectual, like, oh, that's that guy who thought these horrible things. Look at what a doofus he is. And you're like, this was like a horrible person, though, like, but in the lens of Family Guy, like, okay, he's a bad guy, but, like, Dr. Robotnik's a bad guy. Like, freaking Bowser's a bad guy that we go-kart sometimes with. And which is, you can make the argument, well, Bowser's not really a bad guy. Like, you can make the argument, I don't know, Peach is the bad guy.
Bowser's not genocidal, at least.
Yeah, so you can make
Bowser hasn't undertaken, like, a genocidal campaign against millions of living humans.
No, that's the point. Like, he's, like, just this goofy guy who is a plot device. He's not, like, this dude who caused like a horrible event in like human society.
Yeah, he's become kind of like like an actual Red Skull. Like, it's just like he's like a stock character, a fictional stock character.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that's I think that kind of leads to the mythologizing of it, like you said. And people always say stuff like, oh, why do women complain about like equal pay because of sexism, or like why do black people care about stuff? I'm like, my dad told me a story where like when he was a little kid, they couldn't sit in certain stools in the ice cream shop because those were like the white seats versus the colored seats. My dad's like 55. I should know the number. I don't.
Not an old man. Yeah.
He's not old enough for us to say that like racism. When was that like legal? So I understand.
Ruby Bridges was going to school at the same time as my mom. Like.
Yeah. So it's.
This is not distant.
So I understand that people are like, oh well, like people try to say that legality is where morals are, which is a bullshit thing to do.
A joke.
It's like, but I can understand
legal positivism.
Yeah, so I can understand.
Always been a joke.
Exactly. So there's a whole like, well, we haven't had slaves in so long. I'm like, that's okay. First off, stupid discussion. But second off, like, it's not like Jim Crow was that long ago. Jim Crow was like less than 60 years ago, roughly, like in its actual effects. So, like, I don't know. It's not long ago enough. Like, people still remember when these things were happening. Like when there were women that said, oh, I was happy to vote for Hillary because this is the first time I was able to vote for, like, I never thought in my lifetime I'd see, like, a female president. There were, like, civil rights leaders who voted for Obama, like, obviously not that long ago. Mm-hmm. So, mythologizing this stuff is, like, I feel like people purposely want to do it, just because, I don't know, it gives them some kind of satisfaction, like, they get all these history books calling slaves workers. And I'm like, they were slaves. Like, let's not call them workers because that's not what happened.
Yeah, that's not playing to either the spirit or the letter of the law. Yeah.
But that's
you had mentioned like Family Guy making jokes about Hitler. And I apologize in advance. I'm an enormous history nerd and I read a lot of weird shit. And one of the things I remember reading is that during the First and Second World Wars, a lot of the U.S. propaganda surrounding German soldiers was doing the same thing. It was painting them as like oafish and kind of bumbling and silly and like, haha, look at these doofuses. And the reason they changed their tactic is because once, battle was joined and the Allies had to fight the German army, they were actually really fucking scary. And if you teach people through their entire, childhood and young adult development that, oh, these people they're not evil, they're just haha doofy and bad and kind of silly, they're not prepared to confront these things when they do have to face them. And I think we're seeing sort of the social equivalent of that right now. We watch, Hitler wearing thigh-high stockings on Family Guy, and it's funny and goofy, but, when there's a literal neo-Nazi rally in a city that was the home of the man who wrote the Declaration of Independence, that's a serious thing. We can't pretend that we are watching an episode of Family Guy.
Yeah, I think you just hit the nail on the head, because that character, not the person, you just think, oh, that guy with just a cup of tea and a conversation, he'd come around. Because the way that he's written, yeah, that guy would. That's not the real person, and that's extremely dangerous. So, which is also just hilarious that Seth MacFarlane's like on Twitter, like, guys, this Nazi problem is bad. Like this, like the right and the alt-right are bad people. I'm like, this is kind of your fault, dude. Like, you didn't do anything.
There's a part of this that is on you, buddy.
Yeah, your hands aren't clean here.
So there's that.
Dom, I have a good marker by which we can hope to achieve a more peaceful and social justice oriented society.
Oh?
The release date of Kingdom Hearts 3.
There's a chance that Trump will be impeached and racism will be stopped before Kingdom Hearts 3 comes out. Like, that's not impossible at this point. Not because I think Kingdom Hearts 3 is coming out anytime soon, but because I don't. And they gave us.
Well, I think Kingdom Hearts 3 is the benchmark for when Trump's impeachment happens, and I think the final obliteration of American racism is going to coincide with the release of Half-Life 3.
At least Valve had the decency to be like, nah, man. Those are the last two Horcruxes.
Yep, that's true.
Funnily enough, I did see somebody like make a Harry Potter comparison on Twitter, and someone was like, I ask you, I beg you, please read another book. Like, stop comparing everything to Harry Potter.
Every single thing to Harry Potter.
Like, I get it. Harry Potter is cool. I really like it. But other books have been written.
It's like, we understand that this is a cultural zeitgeist, but, like, there are other big things to make reference to, please.
Yes.
Even big things about revolution or fighting back against bad guys. Fun fact, there are bad guys in lots of stories.
That's normally the plot. Stop the bad guy.
I actually saw a really good one a few years ago that was all about a bad guy. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. Star Wars?
I've heard of Star Wars, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I've heard of that one.
Yeah, there's a bad guy in that one too.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Well, people thought he was really, really cool, though, so, like...
It's true, yeah.
And his backstory said that he wasn't really that bad of a guy, so,
I watched Star Wars and it gave me my first confused feelings about good and evil.
Was that its point, or did that happen later?
Good question. Good question.
So, Star Wars is coming out at the end of the year, so that's kind of nice. I'm looking forward to that.
There's one thing to look forward to besides the world ending tomorrow.
Just adorable little galaxy Furbies.
I guess Kylo Ren did destroy like an entire galaxy, and like we kind of don't think about that really. We're like, oh man, he was mean to Finn and Rey.
Oh man, that guy was a douche to one person that I like.
Like that is.
He also blew up 7 planets.
He destroyed a planetary system.
He threw a lot of stuff out of gravity. Like, not only did he blow up a lot of stuff, there's a lot of stuff that's going to like suffer because of that. Also, Endor shouldn't be inhabited, but we'll pass that.
Can you imagine being like the contractor whose job it is to fix all the shit on not the Death Star, but wherever Kylo Ren's base was? Like, dude, I just fixed this computer console. I just fixed this last week.
Well, that planet fell apart, right?
Yeah,
I think it did. Yeah.
After he like fucks up all of his temper tantrums, I feel like no matter where he goes, those temper tantrums are going to follow. Starkiller Base may no longer be there, but Kylo Ren's temper tantrums are eternal.
They are eternal, yeah.
It's weird what some people will consider lore and where they draw the line of what they consider too much power, and that's just how that's how you know that like that's the obvious tell for people's sexism if it wasn't obvious enough. So Starkiller Base I think is named after the dude from Force Unleashed or whatever, like as a nod.
Yeah.
So many fans will consider all the Star Wars side stuff canon, and again I didn't see this, but apparently the Starkiller Jedi Sith, he like lifted a Death Star or something equally as large with the Force.
He grabbed the Star Destroyer and pulled it into the ground just with his brain.
Yeah, so
like you do.
So there's that, and I can make the leap. I don't know how the Force works, and apparently neither does Han Solo or George Lucas.
Yeah.
But that can happen. However, somehow Rey is a Mary Sue because she used the Jedi mind trick on one guy who was a stormtrooper whose whole shtick is being controlled.
Also, like, she knew how to use a lightsaber. Like, motherfucker, did you watch A New Hope?
I've just been watching like, a lot of video essays about that, and someone's like, "Oh, how was Rey able to keep up with like this trained Jedi master?" I'm like, "Well," and they're like, "Well, actually, first off, she didn't. B, this dude just got through another fight. C, just killed his dad, which she obviously was conflicted about. And D, remember how they went out of their way to show how strong Chewie's bowcaster was? He took that directly in the stomach.
Yeah, so, like, he just shot him right in the gut.
This guy's having a bad day." And
in short,
and Rey barely won that fight either. So it's not like she owned him. She was like, "Oh."
She didn't win the fight so much as she just didn't die.
Lose the fight.
It's like that's like, guys, she's overpowered. Like, yeah, no, I don't believe it. And let's say she was. Still a dope movie, because, like...
Yeah, exactly.
My suspension of
I'm sorry that the movie about, like, magic space wizards is not realistic enough for you.
Just...
That's how I feel all the time.
Right?
Like, since their bullshit is disprovable through, like... It's just a movie, watch it, like, logic.
Yeah, exactly.
And also, like, actual logic, like... I think was it like Sean and Jen? They did a breakdown of every reason why the bullshit that people have against Rey is like, not only is it bullshit, it doesn't make sense if you actually watch the movie and pay attention. And I'm like, yo, I was just accepting it because I thought these dudes were dicks. Like, there's proof in the movie. What a coincidence. These guys know what they're doing.
Do you remember how Luke Not only did he manage to keep up with them, he became the leader of the squadron after everyone else died, and then he managed to blow up the Death Star by himself?
With his eyes closed!
So let's talk about fucking Mary Sue's here, man. Like, don't get me wrong, I love Star Wars enough to have it tattooed on my body in several places, but like...
Oh, like...
I know what's up, man.
You can have weird stuff in a movie and still love it. It's just, these guys are just full of shit. So I'm glad we had that talk.
Yeah.
That was a nice transition.
That was a nice, like, sideways segue into the Star Wars.
There's nothing... I don't know why I thought about it. It just makes me happy. I think you mentioned it. Yeah, Patrick mentioned it about...
We were talking about bad guys.
There's so many bad guys. But there's a lot of good guys, so...
Honestly, there are bad guys on both sides, to be honest.
Really bad guys.
Yeah.
Bad guys. The rebels did also kill some people. They blew up the Death Star. There were lots of people on there.
There were people on the Death Star.
You gotta imagine...
Who were alive and are not alive anymore.
You gotta imagine, like, the weird, like... The contracted people on the Death Star, like, they don't 100% know what's going on. They're like, we're just, like, the janitor team. Like, we're the chefs. We don't really know what you guys are up to. We thought this was...
We're just trying to get a union together.
We thought this was
I'm
a
pretty
golf
sure
bar.
there have actually been some Robot Chicken sketches about that, and they're very funny.
Like, I have no sympathy for all the Sith that got what was coming to them, but there had to be, like Chef Light Ramsey or whatever, Sky Ramsey.
Yeah.
Who was like, wait, what's going on?
Well, because, like, the Galactic Empire is the legitimate government, right? So imagine even, like, the interns who are, like, interning on the Death Star.
They're just, like, government interns.
They're like, oh, god damn it, man.
Like, you may have deserved this in 20
like,
years, but you don't right now.
Can you imagine, like, the bidding contract to get, like, in the cafeteria on the Death Star?
Yup.
Like... I think we're getting a Bobby Flay restaurant, you guys.
Because that place was huge. There had to be, like, an airport mall on the Death Star.
Oh, there's... I wouldn't be surprised if there were several restaurants, yeah.
Do you think it was, like, a tourist attraction that was not called the Death Star, like, common people, like, that's how they got all the government money for it?
Yeah, they called it the Hug Ball.
The Hug Ball. It's the center of government, like... Also, we have, like, these magnificent light shows. We're not shooting lasers into planets. That's weird. We wouldn't do that.
I do like the idea that the Death Star is kind of like Guantanamo, but, like, they're not quiet about it at all.
It's just called the Death Star.
Yeah.
I mean, like, they named it the Death Star, so they weren't being particularly secretive about what it was for. They didn't even go to, like, the respect of, like, calling it, like, advanced interrogation instead of torture, like...
Yeah. No, it's the Death Star. It reminds me of that Mitchell and Webb sketch when they're the Nazis.
Are we the bad guys one?
Yeah, do you ever wonder if maybe we're the bad guys?
I mean, those are the people, if you're going to feel sorry for somebody, feel sorry for the people who actually don't know because they just need to eat.
Yeah, seriously, man. Feel sorry for
job.
that poor sous chef who's, like, scrubbing Space Gordon Ramsay's kitchen for 16 hours a day.
Because maybe Space Gordon Ramsay was actually a Sith member, but, like, his assistant was not.
Imagine if the last thing that ever happened to you was your boss, Space Gordon Ramsay, calling you, like, a
maggot,
a Muppet or something. Yeah.
And then you find out you're getting blown up by the resistance. You're like, you know what? I'm fine with this.
You know what? Yeah. Take me now.
Oh, that's...
This has been a beautiful rabbit hole, y'all.
You know what? Like, to wrap back around, we even, like, try to, like, play down, like, how evil, like, our fictional bad guys are. Like, the whole, like, Matt the Radar Tech sketch. Like, Kylo Ren blew up a galaxy, and they're like, no, he's just a goofy janitor guy. Like, no, stop doing this with fake people, too. Like,
yeah, seriously.
But also, like, the entire Empire's design is based on, like, Nazi shit. Like,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's pretty obvious, actually.
They based their uniforms on Nazi uniforms.
I mean, have you looked at Darth Vader's helmet? It is literally a Stahlhelm.
Like...
I don't know enough about history, so...
They're just the Nazi military helmet from World War II.
Oh, yeah, okay. No, yeah, yep, okay.
Yep.
It's literally what Darth Vader's helmet looks like.
Is that why, like, their lightsabers are red versus, like, any other... No, red's just bad in general, never mind.
All the evil things are red.
All
Tomatoes, etc.
Stoplights.
Why do you hate tomatoes?
Tomatoes are terrible, Dom. Let's be honest.
I think you're outnumbered here, buddy.
No, I mean, I'm not gonna say they're good. I just didn't have a strong opinion that they were bad. Like, I wouldn't bite into a cherry tomato in a salad, but like, that's who you have to worry about. Tomatoes on a sandwich or salad? Oh, okay, fine. Biting a tomato like an apple? That's how you end up on Criminal Minds. That's how you end up in a chokehold by Derek Morgan.
It's true.
Spencer Reed's like, I've never seen this before.
I'm glad I was able to successfully ruin your podcast.
Well, you say ruin, I say like top 5 episodes.
It's a, pardon the pun here, tomato thing.
Oh God.
You're in good company. There's a few other questions on here that are actually serious questions. Steph, did you want to get into any of them?
No, I've had a fun time.
Okay.
I think I'm good.
Patrick, do you feel like your character has properly been revealed on our show?
I am just enjoying talking to you lovely humans, so whatever you want to ask me, I'm happy to chat about.
Well, I appreciate that. We have something that we call the lightning round, kind of insincerely, where we ask a bunch of like nerdy questions that aren't meant to gatekeep. It's not a quiz. Would you be down for some of that?
Yeah, I'm really eager to show the world how much of a fake geek boy I am, so let's do it.
Awesome. Steph, would you be down for this? Like, you good for a little bit?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, cool. I'll let you...
This is my only exciting plan for Friday night.
Mine too, because if it's not this, I'm going to get mad at Overwatch, and I'd rather postpone that as long as possible. Okay, I'll let you pick the first question.
Okay. This is a question that I love. If you could cross over any 2 pieces of media, what 2 things would you cross over?
Oh boy.
You went for the good one right away.
And
why? Oh god. I'm also trying to decide if I give a real answer or a stupid answer or just... Oh boy.
You know what? Go for both.
Yeah. I mean, you could use the stupid answer and then use it to buy time to think of the...
I would love... God, this is tough.
It's
any
probably
piece of media, huh?
Yeah, so
this
like
is probably our
if you're like
flagship
thinking
question.
like anything from musicals to books to like,
I just came up with this
real
now,
history,
so I
like-
apologize if this is half-baked, but I would love to see like a buddy cop series that is Frank Castle and the guy from Doom. And the whole joke is that like Frank Castle is just horrified constantly by how hyper violent the Doom guy is.
It's like, even I am not this.
Yeah, like he pulls out a
person.
gun to like scare someone, and the Doom guy just like rips the dude's throat out. He's like, "Dude, fuck, we talked about this."
Sequel Hulk with the Hotline Miami guy.
Yes, yeah, there we go.
I mean, it'd be better than Iron Fist.
Okay. I can also step over a bar, Stephanie.
When you bury the bar in the ground, it's very
Yeah.
easy to step over it.
And yet 2017 has happened, so like...
Yeah, I don't think I really know what standards are anymore, I'm not gonna lie.
President Trump is the dig dug of going below the bar.
Yeah.
His favorite Pokemon is Diglett. He's the Mr. Driller champion of the United States.
These are all sad and very true and very funny.
It's your turn, Tom.
You know who's not a fan of President Trump besides everybody? But you know who makes a career out of it is Vicente Fox, the former president of Mexico.
Oh,
Yes.
he's a treasure.
If you haven't seen his
God
videos,
bless.
I recommend them because he has a props budget just dunking on our president. And our president, that's the first time I've ever said that. I'm going to take it back. President 45,
Yeah.
as much as he loves to talk shit on everybody, refuses to fire back at Vicente Fox because he doesn't want to get roasted. And
Yeah, he knows what he's
can't win.
beat. Come on, seriously.
Like, anyway.
Also, like, Vicente Fox knows how to use Twitter like a human.
That's true.
Yeah.
He's like-
How words work.
He's
So
like,
he's
In
got
two
one up not
languages.
just on the president, but on like most of Congress apparently.
that's true.
Yeah.
He's like, I'll meet you I'll let you pick the arena, and I'll come to play, and you'll still lose. Oh my gosh. He said goodbye. He's like, have a good day, comrade, in Russian. And I'm like, I've never pissed myself laughing, but I want to go drink a gallon of water and purposely piss on myself laughing, and then tell him that this is the first time it's ever happened.
That's elaborate. I like it.
Yeah.
I appreciate
Sounds
comedy.
like something that would later be leaked in a BuzzFeed document.
I've heard about leaks.
Is that there's so much happening.
There are so many layers to these terrible bad jokes.
I think it prefers to be called America.
America is like an ogre. And then it just scares
like
everybody.
It's big and green and kind of unpleasant, but
we have
makes the rest of the world smell bad.
These metaphors are getting away from me. I apologize.
But we have a black best friend, just like Shrek, his best friend Eddie Murphy.
Oh, that's right.
Mike Myers and Eddie Murphy should do a buddy comedy where they're not fake creature and animal. Wait, hold on.
Can they dress up like Shrek and Donkey, though?
Yeah.
Because that would be dope.
Hold on, pause. Eddie Murphy was Donkey, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Wasn't he also Mushu?
Yes.
Yes, he was.
Why is he
He's made a career in being animal sidekicks. Sassy, like, fast-talking animal sidekicks.
What a world. How do you... Patrick, do you know Harry Potter?
I've heard of him.
Do you know him personally?
Have you met Harold Potter?
Are you invited to the Potter Weasley Christmas parties?
I must be off the Christmas card list, unfortunately.
#same. Do you know what your Hogwarts house would be? And if not, do you want to pick one?
So we were talking about this at work the other day because I have a real job, and I took a couple of quizzes because I'm anal retentive and wanted to make sure that I got the best results. And it put me in Ravenclaw, which I have absolutely zero opinion about.
I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
I'd say you would be as an academic person.
I just didn't want to be Gryffindor because it's super boring.
Yeah.
That's fair.
It's the Mary Sue house, let's be real.
It
No, it
is.
is. It is that. Harry Potter's a Mary Sue. Like, I'm a jock who won everything.
I like that the name of the series, the series is named after the guy who kind of does the least in any given chapter.
Situation.
Yeah.
Just like
the series
Washington,
should be
DC.
called Hermione Granger and her two fucking idiot friends.
Yeah. I love the description, Dom was leading kind of into this, but the description of Harry Potter as that dumb jock that everything went right for in high school, and then he graduated, married his high school sweetheart, and became a cop.
Yeah, he's a trust fund kid who's a jock in high school, and then graduates even though he does no work, and then goes on and becomes a cop. Exactly.
Because he's a sports ball star.
Yeah,
he's a legacy. That's all he is.
He is. He's a double legacy. Yeah. He didn't even know the school existed, and he got accepted.
Meanwhile, who does the majority of the work? The possibly woman of color.
It's not possible. It's established. Let's be real.
It's canon in my heart.
Mm-hmm.
Well, J.K.
It's
Rowling
the only place that matters.
doesn't have a problem with it, so
yeah, good enough for me, man.
I don't know. Hashtag
That's
Hermione's
all
black.
I need.
She's black in the stage play, right?
The first actress who played her was black. I don't know if the next one was, but
for some reason,
J.K. blessed the casting. So
that's the best thing she did after Harry Potter. Let's be real. You got the next question, Steph. By the way, I'm Slytherin.
Yes.
Steph's Ravenclaw.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
What are you, dumb?
Slytherin. Because I'm a fast-talking, sort of jackass, cunning person.
I like it.
Do you think all Slytherins eat ass, or is that just me and Draco?
I mean, Malfoy definitely did.
I mean, yeah, Malfoy definitely did. Let's be real. But do you think that's all Slytherins or just two?
I'm trying to picture Snape getting up in there, and it's not
hard.
working for me.
Yeah.
That
was not a question I expected to hear tonight or ever, but
you're welcome.
I feel like I've been changed as a person.
Okay, I know this is to interview. I know Patrick's the subject, but Steph, you're the Harry Potter expert that I know the most. So, if there was a house that was most likely to eat ass, which house would it be?
Yeah, probably Slytherin.
Okay.
Gryffindor
Really?
would be... I don't know, I think Gryffindor would be the guys who expect blowjobs but won't go down on a girl.
We're counting all genders of people in these houses, not just the men. There's also women in Gryffindor.
Yeah, but I just mean, like, that's, like, the feel that I get from
okay.
Gryffindor House as a whole.
See,
like,
this is why the Gryffindor people are so miserable, because all the Gryffindor men expect blowjob, are the types of dudes who just expect their girlfriend to blow them, and all the Gryffindor women are the types of girls who, like, ew, blowjobs are icky.
So no one's happy.
No one's happy. That's why they're always breaking the rules.
That's why they gotta win the House Cup every year. Dumbledore knows it's a sexless dorm.
Yeah, it's true.
I feel like... Maybe, actually, I'm going to revise that to Hufflepuff, because I feel like Hufflepuffs are very thorough.
I think you're right. You know, that's why JK didn't... That's why it's always...
JK couldn't get into the Hufflepuff house characterization too much, because it's just like a den of iniquity.
I gotta say, if there is one piece of Harry Potter fanfic I want to read, it's whatever JK Rowling has written, because you know it's out there. You know she's written some nasty stuff.
It's the brave house, the smart house, the cunning house, then
and the always, freaky house.
Yeah, it's usually it's the other one. It's the ass eating house. Like they know all the sex spells, like Dodo Patronum or whatever the fuck. I don't know. Happy Friday, guys.
I like this version of Harry Potter.
I'm gonna ask the next question, okay?
Please do. Please save our souls.
Alright, next question. Do you have strong opinions and or a favorite amongst all of the various iterations of the Joker in Batman?
I mean, I'm trying to think of a way to answer this that isn't going to be boring. The short answer is no, not really. The other short answer is, if I had to choose one, it would be the Heath Ledger Joker, even though I know it's passé to like that, but I think he did a really good job.
You're allowed. We'll allow this.
Yeah. That would be my guess. I have very strong feelings about Batman in general. I think Batman as a concept is kind of atrocious in 2017.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with that too.
Oh, yeah.
It's just the Joker's cool.
He is the 1%, like, kind of by definition.
And instead of using his money for good, he goes out and beats up mentally ill people?
Yeah, so in general, I tend to avoid Batman. But I do think that Heath Ledger's portrayal of the Joker was really, really good for what the character is and how it interacted with Christopher Nolan's Batman.
That makes sense. I saw a thing by it's this new, I don't know, this guy, like this Mikey guy or whatever, does like video essays on movies, and he points out that, like, I mean, yeah, the Joker does kill some people, but like most of the people he actually kills, with the exception of, I'd say, like Rachel, the people he kills are all bad guys, and he actually stops the mob, unlike what Harvey Dent and Batman were trying to do the whole time. And I think you can make I haven't seen The Dark Knight in a while, but you can make the claim that the Joker has less casualties than Batman does, and Batman's like trying to do the right thing, like with all the cars and buildings he like blows up, and Batman always breaks the law, and the Joker like seems to follow the law more often than Batman does, like other than murdering people.
I also like that people are like, well, Batman's good because he doesn't kill anybody. But it's like, dude, if you read like The Dark Knight Returns, like he paralyzes like dozens of people. Like, yeah, he's not actually murdering anyone.
Someone's spine.
Yeah, like let's not get high and mighty ideas about, you know, Batman being a kind-hearted neighborhood superhero. Like, he has caused permanent damage to a lot of people.
Yeah, I think when we try to like use the morality of Batman, we think about like Adam West and like Batman Forever Batman, but like with a badassery of like Arkham Asylum and Christopher Nolan Batman, who are like might as well not even be the same character. Like,
so this is an unpopular opinion, but I'm going to share it anyway because #YOLO, #so blessed. So my girlfriend and I recently rewatched Batman Returns because we hadn't seen it in a while, and so it started because she hadn't seen the original Michael Keaton Batman, so we watched it, and surprise, surprise, it was awful. So we rewatched Batman Forever because we were like, all right, well, let's watch a like critically reviled Batman movie, it's actually really fun.
Yeah.
And like it has a really good sense of style, and it's very cohesive, and like it doesn't take itself too seriously, but it also like is not ridiculous. It's a good time, man. I think that movie gets a bad rap.
Is that the one with Mr. Freeze?
No, it's the one with the Riddler and Two-Face.
Oh yeah. See, I like Batman and Robin just because it's cheesy. I love
I don't even
cheese.
know if I've seen that one.
It has so many Arnold Schwarzenegger puns.
Oh yeah, that one.
Oh my god, like I just can't stop loving it. And
Dom's weak for puns.
And like
If
Batman,
you hadn't realized yet.
I think like Robin has like rubber lips at one point to avoid like the Uma Thurman
Oh yeah.
like poison ivy kiss.
Wow!
It's the like it's the dumbest shit, and it's like
the worst delivery of a line in the history of acting.
But like
it's
watch that movie and have a bad time. You can't do it. Like it's like The Room, but like people were competent. But like you still get enjoyment from like
The Room
really?
with like a higher budget.
Yeah, and like I don't know.
People who had made movies before working on it.
Yeah. But it's a fun
I used to say that like if I ever were to run for president against Arnold Schwarzenegger, that I wouldn't spend any money on campaign ads. I would just play clips of him as Mr. Freeze, and like that would be my entire campaign. Is just look at this asshole.
But I don't think that would hurt your chances. Like, and that's not even considering the bullshit we had last year. I just think that like that wouldn't turn me away from him.
Well, yeah, this was before we elected fucking president, whoever the hell we have now.
President reality show.
Yeah.
Not even a good reality show. That's
too
that's
mad
America
to even
for
think
you.
of a clever name to call him. He's just President Fuckwad.
So, you're giving them the honor of calling him. I kind of just wanted to be a dick. I don't want to be on a watch list, but like I'm already black, so like like I had a conversation with a loved one recently, and like you say stuff on the internet that like I'm just worried I don't want you to get hurt or whatever. I'm like, yo, they already kill black people just for like existing. I'd rather like also be a martyr rather than just die. Like I apparently am not safe for following the law, so I might as well be a Twitter revolutionary, which is like the most low-key thing. It's literally the least I can do is say Nazis are bad, our president's incompetent.
Come at me.
I'm not high profile enough, but
I'm really looking forward to reading that chapter in the history book. Like the great Twitter revolutionaries of the early 21st century.
They're gonna have to write about that.
I don't want to be anyone who has to write a history book about just the last 6 months.
A project that I started on my own just because I'm trash is I started composing and writing our history chapter from like 300 years from now, just to kind of see what it would be like. It's depressing. It's I mean, in hashtag real talk, it's interesting in terms of getting a perspective, sort of almost an external perspective of like what your society's values are, like laying them out in plain language is interesting. Mm-hmm. Mostly it's just depressing though. I
can see that. But if you want to ignore it, you can be like, it was a terrible year for everything it was bad for climate, for politics, for just general human decency. However,
for pop culture.
There were Game of the Year contenders as soon as January. So like,
it's true.
Pros, cons.
There were some pretty good movies. Like,
yeah, that's true. We had Atomic Blonde, Star Wars 8 should be good.
Yeah.
Like Atomic Blonde.
Wonder Woman was it did well.
I quite liked that actually.
Yeah, I really liked Wonder Woman.
It was the best DC movie to come out.
I mean, again, when the bar is buried. Because the last DC movie I watched prior to Wonder Woman was Batman, Superman, whatever that one was. Which I can barely, in good conscience, even call that a movie. No, I'm not even being cute. Like,
no.
We watched the first maybe half hour of it, and neither my girlfriend nor I had any idea what was happening or who any of the people were. We're just like, sure, we're along for the ride now.
Yep, I guess we're in it for the long haul.
Yep, and boy, that haul was long.
Boy, was that haul long.
It's weird. I've heard the extended version of that is better, and it's still a trash movie. which is like...
I mean, it can't very well be worse unless the first, like, the extended scenes are literally just Zack Snyder taking a shit on camera.
So we've talked about it on this podcast, and when this episode comes out in the future, you'll be able to hear what I'm talking about in the past. But Zack Snyder is like on writing credits of movies that are pretty good. Like, he helped write Wonder Woman, from what I understand.
He came up with the title.
This is right.
Okay, maybe. But it's like, I like the idea of a man who can write but can't direct, but keeps getting picked for being a director because, well, we can't have a woman or person of color direct. Like, we need a white guy. And
I mean, that's how Kevin Smith's entire latter career has worked. He was a good dialogue writer, and people decided that also made him a good director, so we ended up with Jersey Girl. Oh, and also Cop Out, that Bruce Willis, who was the other person in that?
I don't even... I thought you were joking when you said the movie's name was Cop Out.
No, it was Terry Morgan. Or, I'm sorry, the guy from SNL / 30 Rock.
Tracy
Morgan.
Okay.
Yeah. Him and Bruce Willis do a buddy cop movie called Cop Out that was directed by Kevin Smith. And
that sounds like a good idea. Or a mediocre idea.
It does.
It was like a good idea in the 80s.
I don't know a single person who's seen it, so I'll just let...
This is my first understanding that it's a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I like Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. I mean, I haven't seen it since I was 14, so it may not have aged as well as I'd hoped. But Jay and Silent Bob make good, like, cosplay characters.
They sure do.
I saw Junkrat and Roadhog as Jay and Silent Bob, and I kicked myself for not thinking of it. So, I mean, like, nice. You know. We have some other cool questions. Since we're so off track.
You can see why we call this the lightning round, kind of affectionately.
Lightning-ish.
You know, it's more like a thunder round.
Yeah.
How familiar are you with Sonic the Hedgehog as a series?
Not very. I know the basics.
Okay, you know how he has like a ton of friends that like he doesn't really need to have?
Yeah.
If you were a crappy animal friend in the Sonic the Hedgehog universe, what animal would you be, and what would your ability be that like is associated with your name?
Dom.
That's...
I think we all already know the answer to this question.
I do, and maybe astute listeners do. So if it's not a wolf,
it is a wolf.
Crap.
It is obviously a wolf.
What would you?
It's the wolfiest wolf, the Wolfenstein.
Yeah, I would be the Wolfenstein. My power would be
going a woo.
So as good as Sonic is at running fast, that is how good I will be at sleeping.
So like Naps the wolf.
Yeah, there we go. And every time they see me, I've like always just woken up from a nap, and I'm a little annoyed about it.
So like Sleepy the wolf.
Yeah.
That's about as creative as those names were, not gonna lie.
I mean, Miles Tails Prower is actually pretty good.
Miles Prower is good, Tails is not.
True, yeah.
Like,
although the idea to give him two tails
so,
was cute.
It was. What were you saying, Steph?
I said he has more than one, so we have to name him after his only notable physical feature.
Well, Knuckles has gloves with big knuckles. No one knows if his hands actually, like, his knuckles aren't that notable. He just has big hands.
We have no idea what his hands actually look like.
And I don't want to.
For how many people, and I am listed amongst these, for how many people he was their introduction to the fact that echidnas existed as, like, a species.
He was mine.
Yeah.
That's not a common creature, like.
No, it is not.
And they're also, I mean, they're obviously not red, but, like, who's the person who's like, blue hedgehog? That's fictional, but we're gonna make our fox orange, which is close to what foxes actually look like. Let's just make this confusing.
The great thing about Sonic is he came from the 90s when everything was like a cool animal mascot with attitude, and for whatever reason, he's just still around. Like, Bubsy's gone, Gex is gone.
Bubsy's coming back, Patrick. You watch your damn mouth.
Look, I don't like it any more than you do, but I have to face reality, Dom.
I don't want him to come back, but at the same time, I'm so curious to see what happens when he comes back. What if the Bubsy game is good?
I don't think I'm ready for that.
We weren't ready for Trump to win either, but
were you ready for anything else that's happened in the last year?
I mean, when you put it that way, you're right. I can't really say anything.
Like, a good Sonic game came out this year, too. So, like...
Oh, are you talking about,
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one not made by Sonic Team, like...
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Oh, yeah, Sonic Mania, that 2D one. That was made by, like, modders and fans. They just were hired by Sega to do it.
Wow.
It was
it
was literally like, you know what? Fine, you do it. And they're like, okay, we will. How do you like those 8 and 9s out of 10, Sega? Oh.
Knew it all along. We always believed in you.
But now Sega's releasing a game on November, and I've never seen the Sonic cycle be broken where people are like, this is going to be the good one, you guys, and they're let down. They're like, this one's not going to be good. We're not even optimistic. I'm going to play it. I don't think it's going to be good. And that's a weird place to be.
In all seriousness, I do feel like it's kind of a bad joke at this point.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think anyone has any expectations for Sonic games anymore.
No. We just, like, enjoy the concept.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because we know they can be good. Because, like, you release something like 06 and it's like a glitchy mesh. You're like, what would this game have been if they actually finished it? What would Sonic Adventure be like with a good camera and, like, decent physics? Like, the concepts... Imagine Mario with bad physics. It'd be horrible, but you're like, oh, there's a good game in here somewhere. I don't know. That's my...
No, I hear you.
Vibe. I'm still hurt. It's been 11 years.
The wounds are too fresh.
Steph, can you bring a question to make me feel better?
Sure. Let's see. Who would you want to play you if your life were a show and or movie?
Oh, no. I've intentionally avoided this question just in my own musings because there's no way to answer it without sounding pretentious.
It's okay. Mine's Anne Hathaway.
Okay, all right.
Hi.
Cool.
Mine's Donald Glover, which is...
Oh, yeah, that'd be perfect.
He's all right looking. He's not, like, quote-unquote dreamboat, so no one thinks I'm being cocky. But I guess maybe Chadwick Boseman looks more like me than Donald Glover does. Which isn't, like me. It's just closer.
Maybe I'll go with good old JGL, Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Okay.
I dig it.
Just because he rocked the hell out of the 3-piece suit in Inception, so...
He sure did.
He did.
Hashtag goals, man.
I guess, yeah. Oh, suit goals, yeah.
Right?
Actually, that makes me think of Donald Glover in a suit. Did you see him at that award show, whatever it was?
I did not.
Well, he had his hair parted like Lando did. Because he's going to be Lando. And it was a nice suit. And I'm like, hey, suit goals.
It's just like, but is he, like, is it suit goals or is he just cosplaying Lando Calrissian at the...
No, it was like a real suit.
At the Emmys.
It was
Look, it doesn't have to be an either or, alright?
That's fair. I read this really hilarious thing about Chris Pine at some event that he went to where he told his stylist, like, I want to look like if I were a journalist in the 50s who went on a road trip in his, like 50s Corvette and, like... he like hit all these like very specific character points, and I was like, man, you just want to cosplay your OC at this event.
Yeah,
he's
that's
like,
what he's doing.
He's like, yeah,
that's what you're doing.
I do. Shh.
And apparently he does this to his stylist. Like, that's like how he describes how he wants to look to his stylist every time he goes to something.
Who's the stylist? Like the winner of Heroes of Cosplay or something? Like
that's what I want to know. Like,
just a very, very patient person.
Like,
yeah.
This is Jessica Negri is the stylist. She's like, I can hook you up. This is my job.
Got this.
And the secondary question: what character would you want to play in the show or movie?
Would I want to play?
Yeah. And it can be a voiceover if you want to like CGI or whatever.
Completely irrelevant to whether you have any acting ability in real life.
I do not, which should not come as a surprise. But I mean, I'm gonna take the cop-out answer on this one as well, and probably say Han Solo because I just admire the hell out of Han Solo. He's very dashing, all right.
I had guessed that maybe you liked him a little bit.
Yeah,
I'm not judging. I've related to characters that I don't even look like, so that's fine. I mean, my lifelong character has been a blue hedgehog, so, like, you know. And he's not even considered, like, the black one of the group, so, like, I don't know. That's why I got in a trap.
Well, he's the blue one.
He's the blue one, yeah. He's this close. Oh, jeez. I mean, I think that's... Oh, last thing. I don't know. The last thing for me, at least, is it GIF or GIF?
It's GIF, obviously.
Nice.
Am I causing problems? Are Mom and Dad fighting now?
Mom and Dad have been in a fight.
Mom and Dad are always fighting.
Okay, all right.
That's our secret.
You just picked a side and no one's holding it against you.
Yeah. It's funny. Me and my roommate will have a conversation and she'll say GIF the whole time and I'll say GIF the whole time and we're just like, yep. We've accepted. We're just gonna live with this.
Surprised that you still live together. I would have moved out. / just throwing their stuff out on the street. Like, get out.
Get out.
Filthy soft G's.
You know what's weird though? Like, that's something that there's like legitimate fair contention on. The creator said GIF, and he has a good reason for that. I'm also an engineer, and I'm like, engineers don't know how to talk. I know that from experience, so I say graphics. But there's...
Well, he called it a GIF because he's not an engineer.
Fair enough. So...
That's a dangerous way to pronounce that word.
Oh, so it is. So it is.
Ooh, yikes.
The last horse crosses the finish line.
Really woke people won't even speak about salt and vinegar chips.
Seriously?
No, I'm just being an asshole, but it's a funny joke. It's a nice bit that I have that I'm working on.
It's 2017, man. I will believe anything you tell me.
It's fair. There's probably someone that is like that. That's just something I lost my point.
We're just gonna start calling it Vinegar.
Vinegar. Like I don't like it. Well, we all said hyperbole at one point in our life. But have you ever been in a conversation with somebody? So like GIF you can excuse, but have you ever heard someone mispronounce a word and like you pronounce it correctly in the conversation, not to be a dick, but just because you had to say it, and they keep mispronouncing it, and you're like, I wonder if they think I'm the asshole here.
I mean, I've had conversations with people where they have very flagrantly mispronounced words. I actually really enjoy those instances because it's how you can tell that people learned a word by reading it and not like by hearing it in a conversation. I had a friend in college who pronounced it dichotomy instead of dichotomy. And
I said epitome until I was 25.
And like I found it so novel I didn't even have the heart to correct her. I'm like, no, this is great.
It's so weird to think about, like, where you'll mispronounce a word but use it correctly. So you can't even say, like, oh, they're uneducated. I'm like, they used epitome correctly. They just said it wrong. Like,
yeah, they know exactly what they're talking about.
That's actually an interesting concept that there's probably a German word for.
I was going to say, there's probably a word that means that.
Yeah, Dom's right. It probably is German. English. It's probably like 26 letters long.
Yep.
One syllable. Oh geez, I could have these conversations all night, but we're definitely at the hour 44 mark, and I don't know if we have the clout to do a 3-hour podcast. So how do you feel? Do you feel pretty good?
I'm feeling Patrick? Good. Feeling real good.
Do you feel like you've properly?
How are those beers going?
Great. They're empty now, unfortunately, but
R.I.P.
I mean, I think that's a good benchmark. Actually, I finished mine a while ago, and I've been trying to contact my roommates to see if they'd bring me another beer, but they're not here.
So you need new roommates, man.
No, they're just gone. I can't blame them for that. They would have did if they were here. I love my brothers.
Come home and carry a beer upstairs for me.
I thought this beer would be strong enough that it would like make me too woozy to keep drinking, but 8.6 isn't enough to stop me. I need at least 10. Oh, this is cute. It has a date of birth on it. But it was.
You guys notice that I live on a highway, by the way?
Oh, you do?
Yeah, I don't know if you've heard any of the sirens going past.
I actually didn't.
Oh, I live on a highway by a hospital.
Oh,
which is great for recording.
I live on a street that's next to a busy street, and people like honk the horns, play their music loud, and I'm like, there's literally a house right here, and you can see the cars. Like, maybe don't honk your horn. Like, I get that it's rush hour, but like, I could have a baby in here sleeping. I don't. But, like, you don't know that. All that aside, we want to extend great thanks to Patrick for spending some time with us, having some laughs, some jokes, some serious conversation. I think we kind of hit all the major points.
The gamut of that.
Yeah, we really did kind of take a tour of all of the extremes.
All of the emotions.
Yeah.
We had them all.
I mean, we started with creamy mouthfeel, so I knew it was going to be a good time.
We hadn't even drunk any alcohol at that point.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah, none.
None.
Patrick, if people wanted to find you and your work on the internet and you actually wanted them to do that, how would they go about doing these things?
Yeah, the best place to find me is just my Twitter account, which, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, is @HanFreakinSolo. Anything I do for writing freelance or writing for bullet points, I will filter through there. Also, I do regularly work on both the Bullet Points podcast, which you can find on iTunes / wherever you get your podcasts, and www.bulletpointsmonthly.com, where we take one shooter per month and devote 4 whole weeks of coverage to that game. What is it right now? September? We are just finishing up our BioShock Infinite month. And then October, which is the next month, is going to be various Halloween games. So if that's your jam, check that out.
It is the time for spookiness.
Mm-hmm.
Everything Halloween is my jam.
There you go.
Well, Halloween starts, what's today, the 22nd? It starts in about a week and 3 days. No, a week and 1 day. October 1st is the month of Halloween. Do you have any costumes planned, Patrick?
I have never dressed up for Halloween.
You're opposed to it or just never came up?
I'm not opposed to it. I'm just really fucking lazy.
That's fair.
I mean, I obviously did Halloween when I was a kid, but I have never had an adult Halloween experience.
I was a ninja every year in college because I found a quick tutorial that just involved folding your shirt around your face.
Nice.
And I don't know if that's cultural appropriation because I think it's a title and a job. So if someone actually knows about that, please let me know. I have since stopped, but just let me know. But it cost me $0, so that was my go-to costume.
Yeah, that's good.
But I have some nice ones planned for this year. I'm gonna be Kanye West for a Halloween party.
Nice.
I'm gonna be accompanied by Kim Kardashian, so it will be nice.
I was gonna say, did you have a?
That's the goal.
The goal is to be Kimye, not Kanye.
Well, I'm gonna be half of that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep my mistakes to myself. And I think I might be like Rick Sanchez for like the Halloween event we're going to at the end of the month. So
very nice, very nice.
Are you a fan of Rick and Morty?
I am.
We could have talked about that for hours too. Are you caught up with the show this year?
No. I mean I watched most of the first 2 seasons.
It's good stuff.
And then I saw obviously the new like the premiere, the Szechuan sauce premiere.
Infinite memes.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. It's a good show. I think the writers are skilled. I think people, not that they give them too much credit, but I think people want to obsess over things. It makes it seem like people are giving the show too much credit. But it's a good show. I recommend everybody on this podcast listens to it, and 2 of those people actually have listened to it. So
you mean watch it?
Yep.
Not just listen to it?
Yep. Yeah, I think you should watch it, Steph.
I'm not gonna. I'll just put it on in the background and listen to it while I do something else because that's what you recommended I do.
Actually,
you joke, but I actually used to do that when I was a kid. Like I would watch Spider-Man cartoons on Saturday morning, and I wanted to record them, but I didn't have the means to make a videotape, so I would just record them on audio tapes and listen to them.
I mean, I think you'll get what's going on. Like, there's physical jokes, but I think actually, you could listen to Rick and Morty as a podcast and get the gist.
That's the likeliest way for me to consume that.
It's worth giving it a shot, actually. That's something we should experiment with. Futurama's doing podcasts now, like radio plays.
Oh, very nice.
Like through the Nerdist, because Chris Hardwick is a huge Futurama fan. He's like, I want him to come back, and it seemed like the animation budget was really what was stopping them. It's like, what if we get all the voices back? He's like, so you mean Billy West and like 2 other people? It's like, oh yeah, and the writers, and they're like, yeah, we'll write you an audio play, and I guess they're going to start doing that. So that's
delightful.
Futurama literally will not die. There's a chance they will be writing new Futurama episodes by the time the year 3000 comes back at this pace.
They'll have to call it present Rama. Ugh, that was bad. I need to.
They'll just
I
call
need
this.
to take a nap.
They'll just
Call
call
it.
The Simpsons.
Yeah, that's better.
Steph, do you want to kick our social media business for the people that are still here?
Yes, I will do that thing. Dear listeners, if you want to find Dom on the internet, you can find him at Brother Dom pretty much anywhere.
Yup.
You can find me at the Snow Queer on Tumblr, at Captain Steph on Twitter, at Hello Steph on Instagram. I don't have that kind of branding that Dom does. You can follow this podcast at Character Rev on Twitter. That's character with 2 R's in the middle. EV. Character Rev. Character reveal was taken. You can find us on Facebook at Character Reveal. You can find us on Patreon at Character Reveal. You can find us on Instagram at Character Reveal. Sometimes we take pictures of cool stuff that we got or did.
Or when we're together sometimes, randomly.
Yeah, sometimes we're occasionally in the same city, and then we take a selfie and post it.
Hashtag millennial.
Yep. And if you want to just listen to this podcast, you can listen to us on iTunes, Google Play Podcast, Stitcher, just on the internet through your browser at characterreveal.simplecast.fm. If you listen to us on iTunes, rate and review us, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, shoutouts to Japan for like almost listening as much as the United States. I don't know what's going on, but thanks.
Yeah, we have a very strange, skewed listener base that I am not complaining about at all.
No complaints.
So, and then Dom and I both write for the Lady Geek Girl and Friends blog, which is an intersectional feminist blog that deals with nerdy stuff of all sorts. So you can check out our posts there if you want to read those.
Yeah, they're pretty good. Well, mine are alright. Steph's are actually good. I'm getting better though. And again, yeah, so go support us. Go support Patrick. Listen to bullet points in your car, your trains, listen to Character Reveal on the way home. It'll be fun. And yeah, thanks for spending some time with us, man. Really appreciate it.
Yeah,
of course,
definitely.
thank you so much for having me. I had a
It's
great
been so
time.
fun.
Yeah, it's been fun. And listeners, thanks again. We'll see you on the next one. We're trying to do these more regularly. We really are trying.
Yeah,
It's
we're
just
back
tough.
on our game.
So but yeah, until next time, see you later.
Bye.